Hi, everybody, and welcome back. I'm Jennifer Phillips Russo, and you are listening to Between the Vines. Between the Vines is a podcast that's brought to you by the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program. We are a collaboration between Penn State University and Cornell University to work together to support the grape growing industry in Western New York and Western Pennsylvania. I'm here with my co-host, Andrew Holden, who is our business management specialist. Hi, Andrew.
Hey, how are you?
I'm a little bit wet, actually. I'm not going to complain about it because of the rain that we're getting that we've needed in these drought-like conditions. Today is a very rainy day. It
Yeah,
is October 22nd, 2025, for all of our listeners who are curious as to what time of year it is, and we are very close to wrapping up harvest, at least in the
yeah.
Concord industry.
Growers didn't really have to worry about rain during harvest or muddy conditions. If there's still, people trying to wrap up, they're gonna have a wet time doing that. But a lot of folks that are already done didn't really see much rain.
No, we didn't, unfortunately, and it is definitely something that is uncharacteristic for our region at this time of year or throughout the growing season. We've actually, and I know we touched base on this on the podcast in the past, but we put together our crop updates. And that's why we put together this podcast because it is such a busy time of year during the growing season. And we put out weekly crop updates during the growing season that have timely viticulture, enology, and business management outreach, educational outreach for our growers. But unfortunately, I hear back from them, many of them, that they just don't have time to read it during the growing season. So we had asked around, well, do you listen to music in the tractor when you're driving around, just trying to figure out how we can be innovative and make sure they get the important information and timely? So that's why we put together this podcast. And I believe it's being received well. I am shocked to know that we have had over 10,000 downloads. So thank you to all of our listeners out there. This is
Yeah.
actually a shameless plug to ask you guys to send us what you would like to hear content about. And you can do that. You can find all of our contact information at lergp.com. That stands for the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program, lergp.com. You can find Andrew's or my contact information out there and send us some suggestions. Okay, we've got that out of the way. That was a little random side bid for when you had asked me about the rain and our crop updates. So during the stage 3 of berry development, that's when the cells expand. And that's when water is crucial for that expansion, is when we actually didn't have any water. So I was curious, and we've talked about it a little bit before, but I think it's worth noting again to just remind people of the drought conditions that were uncharacteristic of our region this year. If you go back, and I believe it's September 25th, 2025, for our crop update or a podcast right around that time, you will know that I did an analysis of the precipitation. We have it for year round, but I wanted to just cut out to the months and the last 10 years where we had berries on the vine. So we hit fruit set in June in our region. So I used June, July, August, and September and just analyzed those 4 months of precipitation over the last 10 years, including this year. And it was quite eye-opening. We knew that we didn't have water and that we needed water, and the canopies and the berry size definitely reflected that. But just to reiterate what we are talking about in number wise, is that this year we only received during those 4 months of when there were berries on the vine 6.69 inches of rain.
Mhm.
Some people might not have anything to reference that to, but over the past 10 years, from 2015 through 2024, the most around amount of rainfall that we had was 20.66 inches in the year 2021. I think everyone can remember that year because we were basically harvesting with swimmies on because it just did not stop raining that year. And then the lowest amount of rainfall in the last 10 years that we had That would have been in the year. Now I'm just trying to make sure I get that correct by looking at my chart. That would have been 2020, the year before, which was a beautiful growing season. A really it was a great vintage. When I'm out buying wine, I always look for the 20, if we can have any 2020s left on the shelf. But we had 11.95 inches of rain during those 4 months in the growing season of that year. So that was the least amount of rainfall in the last 10 years besides this year was 11.95 inches. That's almost 6 inches below from this year. So we needed this rain that's falling today and that fell a couple weeks ago. It's definitely needed for all of the crops and even just the ecosystem that we have in this area.
Yeah, I've heard reports of, well issues. I've heard reports of soybean harvest being lower than anticipated because of the lack of rain in the area. So we're seeing it everywhere, not just in the grapes.
Right. And there's been at least two of the municipalities in this region have conserved water notifications out there to all of their
Yeah.
residents because of that. And I've heard reports from growers and processors that crop estimations, we were geared to have a great season. Berry size was at 30 days post bloom was above average than the 24-year history. And then we just never got any rain. So I've heard reports of being 15% lower, 13, 11% lower than their crop estimations of what came in, which is very disappointing. If only we could predict the weather, right? Maybe we would be rich if we could do that.
Yeah, definitely.
Lord. So what else do you have going on, Andrew? I know we have a lot to talk about and a lot to sort of bring our grower or our listeners up to speed on because some of us have been
Yeah.
absent from the office.
Yeah. Uh, for me on the business management side, on the farm econ side, we're waiting for a few things currently. So there is the Resilient Food Systems Infrastructure grant that some of our New York growers, some of our PA growers, Pennsylvania growers applied for, and a few of them received. New York rolled theirs out, and we had quite a few people apply, and we're waiting to hear back if any of those will be received, mainly to get bulk equipment. Um, so it should be announced, they say anytime this month, and we're about two-thirds of the way through it. So here in the next week or so, we should be seeing that announced. So we're hoping that we can get some funding to those growers.
Do you
There's
think that
also
there's a little thing happening in our government that might push that?
yeah, the allegedly with that one, it is a federal grant that was given to the states that was contracted with a third party to administer. And allegedly, there's an email sent out that said that the government shutdown should not affect that particular grant. Now, when we talk about other
Fantastic.
things like the FSA, um, uh, disaster program that some of our growers received last month, and that the supplemental disaster assistance that um, we're looking for stage two to be released here in the next couple weeks. That one may be delayed due to the shutdown. Um, we're seeing certain things, like the National Weather Service staying up, because that's crucial for for
Everything we
safety.
do, right?
Yeah, for safety and for getting the weather reports out there. But certain USDA programs are definitely either slowed down or halted at the moment. As far as grape growers, in this time of the year, there's not anything major glaring that we are concerned about. If there are growers that are utilizing USDA loans to uh, pay for inputs for next year, then there may be some issues getting those through at the end of the year this year. But mostly our growers aren't going to be too terribly affected. Like I said, that the big one is that supplemental disaster relief program that stage one was already administered to growers who had um, insurable losses due to the frost in 2024. And the stage two is going to be for producers that had uncovered losses. So those who had a loss but didn't have insurance on it. The reason that they do that is the crop insurance payment. Uh, it's really simple to show what your loss is. It's already um, verified with your insurance company that there was a loss there. So they just go through and say, all right, these growers had losses. We're going to pay on top of that loss, almost to the point where it covers, once you add it to the insurance payment that you received, it almost covers that entire crop loss, uh, which is great. It's good for our growers who maybe are struggling with price or market this year to get some of those funds from the 24 crop that we had of frost, especially here on the New York side of things. Now, the second stage is for those, it's a little bit harder to quantify. And I imagine it'll take a little bit of working with your local FSA office to determine um, basically what your averages were and then what your receipts were um, at your processor when you harvested your grapes, or if you didn't harvest your grapes, uh, what was left in the field. Um, Anyway, stage two will cover those uncovered losses. Um, and it'll also cover shallow losses. So if you had a frost or damage to your crop that wasn't enough to trigger an insurance payment, but you were still down, let's say, 2 tons per acre, then this second stage you should be able to apply and possibly get some uh, relief there from the Farm Service Agency. So be keeping an eye on that on their website. They say it's targeted to begin in October 2025. And like I said, we're at the 22nd and they haven't announced it yet. So it could come in the next week or so. But with the government being shut down still at this time, it could be pushed back farther. And I sort of expect that to be the case. Um, if
So
you
is
haven't
that,
signed up, go ahead.
oh no, I was just going to say, is that something that you want our grower members to come to you for, or is that something you just send them to FSA?
Yeah, I would send you the FSA. They would be
Okay.
the ones that are filling out that application. Um, if you have questions about it, I'm happy to answer. I've read about it and have spoke with FSA about it. Especially, now I think they're fairly busy and probably uh, have some delays due to the government shutdown. So feel free to call me if you want to talk about that and but when it comes down to signing up for it, you have to do that through the FSA, and they're going to be the ones handling the application and everything. So, but if you think you might have a shallow loss, or if you have any questions about what any of those things mean, I'm definitely available. The last thing that I wanted to talk about today, as far as things that I'm waiting on, the New York Farm Viability Institute um, puts out a few grants every year for researchers, for growers. Uh, they are they've announced that they're going to do a second round of beginning farmer competitive grants, and they were hoping to get that done or released late fall of 2025, which that's right now, I would say. So we're anticipating that to be out here any day now. So keep an eye on that. All of these things I will update uh, our growers in our crop update as soon as I hear something, or we'll send you an email directly with this information. But the beginning farmer grant, I think, is a really good one. Um, it is for beginning farmers, so I think that's less than 10 years.
Okay, I
Uh,
was just going to ask you if you knew what
yeah,
constituted a beginning farmer. So
yeah.
it's less than 10 years though.
Yeah, so it's not like you have to have bought the farm in a year, like last year or something. So, um, and it could be. I helped with the first round, looking at the submissions, so I have a fairly good understanding of it, and it seems like if you're the next generation that has recently took leadership or ownership over a farm in the last 10 years, then that could be used as a beginning farmer, um, as well. Yeah.
I
So
can already think of
that's,
some of our growers that would
yeah,
qualify.
there should be growers that qualify. And the people that are reviewing these want to see, um, they want to see a few things when the RFP comes out. Take a look and see if it applies to you. But one of the things that they want to have is they don't want to just fund farms that don't have any track record, of a market or success, or uh, need. If I just said I wanted to start a sweet corn farm, and I have no experience, and I don't know where I'm going to sell it, and I don't have any proof of concept, that's not going to be as attractive as someone that's been farming for 4 or 5 years, and they say, hey, I just really need an investment of X amount of dollars to buy this piece, this harvester that will take me from, this level to this level. And I'm having a really hard time because lack of labor. And I just need, this one piece of equipment would really uh, take my operation to the next level and get me to where I can do this full time or hire somebody on. Um,
I'm sorry to interrupt you,
yeah.
but my brain's been, I don't know if you could see the wheels turning while you were talking. And this might be putting you on the spot, but I was just thinking, what if it was something like an established, because I know this happens a lot in our industry. You have an established farm or an established winery, you have an established entity, but you're bringing your children more into it and they are taking on parts of it as their own, maybe not the whole thing. Does that still qualify them? Do you know? Like,
I think that would be a harder sell for this one.
okay.
It is beginning farmer, so I think it's really, and even that next generation buying the farm, it might not apply to everybody. It could be, if it's a large farm that's in good, um good health, good financial position, they might look at that and say, all right, these people are, already doing fine. It's really, they're really looking for the best bang for the buck, best impact that they can make with these funds. Um, it's essentially to address the issue that we're seeing in agriculture across the board, where growers are aging out, and we're seeing farm consolidation. So they're really looking to help, small, newer, not necessarily small. I don't want to speak too much for their program. You can check out the RFP and see, what their goals are. But to me, it seems like they're looking to um, help out these smaller, uh, or these new and beginning growers that exit the market, or might, not have the capital available to weather, a couple tough years, that sort of thing.
Very
But
helpful. I'm glad that
there's
they're
definitely grape
supportive.
growers. There's definitely grape growers that can apply to this. They've applied to the past. They've given them to grape growers, both for juice and wine growers. So definitely something to keep an eye out. And I was just looking at their website right now. They have a sign up for round two release notifications. So if you go to New York Farm Viability Institute, it's nyfvi.org, and go to their round two link on there at the bottom. It gives you the options to sign up for release notifications. So if you're interested, do that. These things can come out in a moment's notice, and they can be short windows, but I'm glad they're doing it this time of year. I think that's better for our growers to be able to get it in, and once it's released, if you want to sit down with me and talk about it, I've gone to farms, I've had people come into my office, and we've worked on some of these grants. It can seem daunting, but you have pretty much all the information you know about your farm. You know what you need. We just got to put it in a attractive application and get it sent in. So I'm happy to help with that if anyone is interested.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. And definitely keep your eye out for it and sign
Yeah.
up for those notifications. Talking about another New York entity that supports our industry, I would like to just touch base a little bit on the New York Wine and Grape Foundation.
Hmm.
So they put out RFPs or requests for proposals that for funding for research, and they have funded all of my years that I have been here. I put in a grant for our NEWA network. So a lot of you know that we have, or maybe you don't know, but all you need to do is Google Cornell NEWA. So the NEWA is the weather station network that we have around. And I'm going to actually read some of the text that I put in this grant every year so that you guys are familiar of what they support for you guys out there listening. So there are three main objectives that I write into this grant every year. And the first one is to increase the reliability of weather and pest model information provided through the NEWA website through monitoring and machine maintenance. We all know how incredibly busy you are, and I know I don't want to assume this for everybody, but I've heard anecdotally from our growers that they would not have the time to regularly check up on their newest stations, their NEWA weather stations, with all of the other things that you have to do. So we put in for a technician's support, actually a research support specialist now for support for them to actually monitor those stations that are around all of our grape acreage to make sure that they're running smoothly. And if they're not running smoothly, we actually go out and try to fix them or work with the grower or the owner or manufacturer of the machine to make sure that that information is reliable and timely so that you have it when you need it. The other objective is to increase adoption of the phenology-based growing degree day models that are out there for management and timing. Those are for grape berry moth, powdery mildew, downy mildew, black rot, phomopsis, even cold hardiness prediction. And we also now have a spotted lanternfly model out there as well. So that's to make sure that you guys are all aware of what's out there. And I know that Megan Luke, who is on our team, a Penn State member of Lake Erie Regional Grape Program, has done a lot of work with the EPA regulations, label changes that are going to be coming up. So being able to access these NEWA weather stations for wind and direction and speed for when you're going to spray or not going to spray are going to become important to document that you have checked that due to these label changes that are coming out. So another reason why we have to make sure that these weather stations are up and ready and predictable and reliable for our growers. And the other one is to increase the effective area of the NEWA weather and pest model information through expansion and updating. So we have the last couple of years been updating and expanding stations around grape growing regions. We started with the Finger Lakes last year, continued that on with that. And then Kim and I were gone all last week because of the grant supported by the New York Wine and Grape Foundation, we were able to put in two weather stations in the Long Island grape growing region and two weather stations in the Hudson Valley grape growing region. So I just wanted, you had talked about the New York farm viability, supporting research and growers in this area, and I wanted to make sure that people knew that the New York Wine and Grape Foundation constantly supports a lot of the research that we do here at the Cornell Lake Erie Research and Extension Laboratory and LERGP. So I should also mention that at least I can speak for myself, and we do a lot of grant research at the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program, but none of the research that I ever put a grant in is because I'm just curious. All of the work and grants that we put in are based off of grower conversations, what ifs. I would really be interested to know I'm having a difficult time managing or mitigating frost. Or what about soil health? New York Farm Viability supported our soil health research that we have here at Clairol and on the Betts farm. But just to put a shameless plug, that all the research done comes from your ideas, our listeners' ideas, and the people who actually research gets down to and helps. So we have a grower advisory committee for the Lake Erie Regional Grape Program. Some of our growers have are terming off, and we need a couple from each county that we represent. If you are interested in shaping which way research goes and which way our educational outreach goes, like our programming, what you need to know more information on, please consider being a part of our grower advisory committee. It is not a heavy lift. As a matter of fact, this year we are meeting via Zoom for 2 hours in the morning so that we can have a back and forth to hear what people are interested for our winter programming. And we do that sometimes in the spring as well, if need be. Like if something comes up, we will talk to our advisory committee to see if they agree or disagree that we need to give more information on that. To become a part of that or find out more, just go on lergp.com and reach out to either Andrew or I or Kate Robinson, who is on there because she is the one who would be getting back to you and organizing that. But we really appreciate all of your input. None of the research done here would happen if it wasn't for you. So here's your chance to sort of guide the research that you think is needed and especially outreach and education that you might, maybe there's research already out there and we just need to get it in your hands. That was a lot of words to say, help us help you.
Yep. Yeah.
So
And even if you're not someone that maybe comes to a lot of programs or even if you don't feel like you have a lot that if you think we're already doing everything that we can, we need differing perspectives and differing growers because there's some people that you know have great ideas, great suggestions, and they just think that we're already doing it or don't think to speak up. So I encourage anyone that is willing to help come join us, come give us feedback.
absolutely. Thank you for adding that. Do we have anything else that we need to chat about? I think a lot of people are just exhaling a little bit because we are nearing the end of harvest. We have
Well, I
also,
know.
go ahead,
Oh,
sorry.
I was just gonna say, I know you've been on the road a lot. You talked about like the NEWA stuff,
Oh,
but
just yes, we have been on the road a lot. And it's kind of funny because another New York Wine and Grape Foundation support is the Verasion to Harvest work that we do. And that's where we collect certain cultivars on a weekly basis. And then
mhm,
we submit them to Chris Gerling's lab and Agritech in Geneva, and they run the analysis. And then we put the information out there to track the maturity, fruit maturity throughout the harvest. Well, Verasion to harvest.
yeah,
And each for the last 3 weeks, we also do a corresponding podcast to that. So if you're looking for more information or just wanting to listen to more things, because ours are only about 25, 30 minutes long, there's another one out there for you to listen to. It has basically been, where is Jennifer now? So the
yeah,
last 3 weeks, they're like, where are you? And I was in Southeast PA for when we were doing some of the spotted lanternfly work. So we have a Cornell and Penn State University, led by Penn State. Kim Knappenberger and myself are really the only Cornell people on it. But we are like a research group for spotted lanternfly. Last year, we did the pilot study for the mechanization to see if indeed they end up in a bulk harvest, and to which I think most of you have heard us report on it. If you haven't, 60% of all the bugs that are on the vine do, on average, do end up in the harvested fruit, which exceeds the limitations for acceptable amounts of materials other than grapes in there. So it would reject a load. So building off of that work, we wanted to see just bare bones. Keep in mind, I should probably add, research takes money. We are not asking our growers for money. I'm just trying to explain that research takes money in order to get us to travel to certain areas I mean, we donate a lot of our time, which we gladly will because it's incredibly important. I don't want to say gladly will, that's a little strong, but we know how important that
Yeah,
this preliminary data is. So we have been traveling just to grab some pilot information to hopefully then be able to build off of that to get grant money to study it more in depth. But we've been doing some spray trials of spraying chemistries that have different PHIs and then counting the bugs' re-entry intervals to see if we can maybe start developing a harvest window timing after spray. Any little bit that we can do to help before, and I'm going to say before we get the big grant, because this work is so important that I'm trying to manifest it out there that we're going to get this funded. It has been submitted. Dr. Julie Urban from Penn State University is the primary investigator on a SCRI grant that we just submitted at the end of September to do this work. So collectively, everybody who mechanically harvests out there in our grape industry, if you would just put some good thought into that, that we get funded so we can help you guys.
that's another government shutdown issue there.
That's why when you, and I felt bad for snickering earlier when you were talking about it, but I was like, and we are all up like on hold,
Yeah,
just waiting to hear something. And I
yeah.
didn't mean to be insensitive. I was just being a little bit of a
No,
sarcastic snicker.
on the research side, and yeah, in our world, there's definitely some delays that are impacting extension and agricultural research,
Yes.
for
Oof.
sure.
But I'm putting it out there that it's gonna happen. See if I think
Yeah.
positively, maybe everything will keep going. But
And
so
and I mean, I think you did a good job explaining it, but I want to give you and the rest of the team, Kim and Megan, props. I mean, there's days out there where you were counting spotter and fly in the pouring rain, and working with all these spray
in the dark,
trials. Yeah, yeah. So I've been
thank you.
really impressed at how much work our team has been doing to make sure that when this threat gets here, we have the best. We're as capable as possible to handle it. And we've been getting a lot of good feedback from growers too on suggestions and things to try. And we've been working. I know with some of the chemical providers around here to like figure out what would be the best option or what they have available for growers to purchase. And part of that on my side is looking at costs and all right, this makes sense, but is it financially viable? But
Right. And if also if certain chemistries you only are allowed a certain rate throughout one growing season,
yeah,
maybe we tell people that you have to save that for if and when this gets here. Thank you for your comments about thanking us and recognizing the work that we're doing around that. But I do also want to mention there are so many people who are on this research team
yeah,
from the Penn State side, the Cornell side, but there's somebody who we've asked to join us on the research team, and that is Dr. Kyle Bakelja. So he is the New York State Grape IPM Grape Coordinator. So he's
yeah,
in Geneva and he's works across the state as well. He has come out and traveled with us out of New York State to where the flies are so that we can do this research and has been incredibly supportive and helpful. So all of the people who are working together is quite amazing. I just hope that the region understands the brevity of it and that we are all here to support you. And we are doing the best that we can with what we have thus far to make that happen. So just shy of bringing all the bugs here so we could work with them in our region. And I know that nobody in the Lake Erie region
yeah.
wants that. So
Yeah, I mean, ideally, we get a lot of the trial and error out of the way so that if we're faced with them as a, major infestation, that we don't spend a year or 2 or 3 years, you know, trial and error figuring out how to do it, because that could definitely be a huge blow to our business here in the Lake Erie region.
could. I do want to mention one other thing, and I think that we may have mentioned this in the past, but another collaboration or partnership that we have is with New York State Department of Ag and Markets. So another time, another week, and Andrew, you were a big part of this team as well. We worked in concert with New York State Department of Ag and Market inspectors in the Ripley area of New York because unfortunately we did find a live adult spotted lanternfly in the region, which is right smack in the middle of hundreds of acres of grapes
Yeah.
where we
Yeah.
found it. And kudos to Ag and Markets for not even hesitating and setting up the grid search and working with us together. We were knocking on doors, asking people if we could go in their backyard and inspect their trees. I don't know about you, but if like a group of people came and knocked on my door, I'd probably be like, looking through the peek hole or, very nervous about opening it. But we were well received for the most part. People allowed
Yeah.
us to just walk in their backyards and look. But just another thing to let you know that we are working in the background. Just, I don't want to say keep you safe. That's not the words that I'm looking for, but just like you had mentioned earlier, we're doing all that we can so that we
Yeah,
can.
we're exhausting all options. I mean, we're working across state lines. We're working with, different state entities, and we're trying, as hard
We're
as we can. And
trying.
yeah,
And hopefully we'll get the federal funding so that we can put more effort into it and just concentrate on some of that because we do that plus all of the other things that still have to happen in order for us to
yeah.
continue doing our day-to-day business. So, well,
I
we
will
have been,
say, oh, sorry. I was
no,
just
go
gonna
for it.
add, I was just gonna add that the experience of door knocking and doing, house to house searching. The one thing that I was a little bit surprised about was how many folks were not aware of the spotted lanternfly. I think sometimes, because we worked with growers and um, I see it so much and we talk about it so much. I thought maybe uh, I was surprised that not everybody knew about it. And that might be, my own bias, I guess. But uh, there's still folks in the community that aren't, super in tuned, or I guess, if they're not in agriculture, why would they really pay
Right,
much attention to spotted lanternfly? So, um, in talking about things that, we're doing as far as the research and searching for the pest, um, making sure people know, sharing it out and sharing the message on it is still important. I know, for us, we're like, oh man, do we even talk about spotted lanternfly at this Nets meeting because we've talked about it at the last 50.
right.
Our growers know about it. Uh, they know what to look for, but the general public might not be as well versed as I initially thought. So that was something I took from it. But it seemed like pretty much everybody that we talked to was open to
Right.
uh, looking for it, being aware of it, calling us if they'd see it. We told them basically this is what it looks like. It's an invasive pest, and it could be, really damaging for the grape industry. And most people that got their attention, and they seemed willing to let us look and to, look out for it themselves.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. But I do want to add, I agree with you that the community members who are not grape growers, it was a little bit alarming that they weren't as well versed in it as I had hoped. We do have a public service announcement on our website. If you go to lergp.com, and then at the top of the page it says IPM, and you click on that, and then you can look at spotted lanternfly. There's a PSA out there both in English and in Spanish. Please have anybody who is technologically savvy in your household share it out on their socials and get it to the common or the community, not the common people.
Yeah.
I please did not mean it that way. We say general population, and then I just go to like jail, thinking jail terms. We're not going to call it gen pop. So for the community members who are not as vested in this bug because it might not be as detrimental to their livelihoods.
Yeah.
So please share those PSAs out there. You can get them at lergp.com.
When they start flying into people's faces and leaving residue
There's
on their cars and stuff, that's when people start caring.
It's so bad. And then you know what's funny is that we have been telling our growers for over 10 years, so they are very well aware of what it is. But when
Yeah.
they travel to areas, because the infestation areas are becoming more and more, and a lot of, people go on vacation, I constantly get text messages or photos or calls from growers that are like, "Oh, that's disgusting." I'm like,
Yeah.
"I know. We don't
Yeah.
want it here." So, well, thank you for joining us today. Please remember, if you can always rewind this and listen to it again because we gave you a lot of websites and information that pertains to you. But
Yeah.
please consider being part of our advisory committee and having a voice on the work that we do here at LERGP. Thank you for always listening and send us comments of what you want to hear more about. Everybody have a great fall. It's almost over. And then, hey, we'll be talking about pruning soon. Bye,
Awesome.
everyone.